Hello and welcome into season 10 of Maroon and Bold. Dude, I can't believe we're already at season 10. So we number our seasons by semester. So that means this show's been around for 5 years. Dude, that's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway, like I said, welcome in season 10, episode 1 of Maroon and Bold. I'm your sports editor and host, Austin Chastain, along in the Zoom call with staff reporter Christian Boer. Christian, it's good to see you, man. It's good to be back. Well, I guess in the Zoom call, getting ready for another Maroon and Bold. How was your break?
I mean, I survived. It was good to get back. It was good to get away from kind of the craziness that was going on this last semester where, you're adjusting to a new form of learning. I'm going to be honest. I mean, it was difficult for me online. I'd much rather be in person, creating relationships with professors and classmates and things like that. So it was a little difficult, but, we survived. And then, you get to go home and be with your family a little bit. And I always enjoy that, always enjoy being able to go home. But now we're back and ready for a new semester. How about yourself? How was yours?
Well, it was good. I mean, we were just balling out, kind of working throughout the entire break. So, it was one of those things that it felt like a break, but it kind of wasn't because we were still doing our thing, which I am not going to complain about in the slightest. But yeah, absolutely. I'm actually right in the same camp. Struggled a little bit with the online classes, but it's good to have a break, go home and spend some time with the family, obviously safely, as much as you can. But yeah, I know my dogs enjoyed the time. They've enjoyed quarantine, especially my big dog Bailey. He's really enjoyed it, hanging out with my mom all the time. So that's good stuff for sure. But yeah, and again, like you said, I'm ready to get back at it. Huge semester of Central Michigan sports that we will dive right into, and in fact, we've already jumped right into it. So. Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and like the season, we're just going to get this podcast started off right away. Christian and our fellow staff reporter Mitch Fosberg have done a phenomenal job covering Central Michigan basketball so far this season. Obviously, a little bit of a weird start. Not a whole lot of non-conference games for both the Chippewa men's and women's team. But the conference season's already started and already fully underway. A couple games in for each team. Christian has been primarily covering the women's team since kind of the new year started. End of the new year, beginning of the new year kind of thing. So Christian, kind of, if you could just kind of throw out an update about the women's team. And you and I talked about it right before we actually jumped on to the show here. Women's team kind of in a weird spot where they're not necessarily playing their best basketball, but we could see their best basketball coming up here in a little bit.
Yeah, they're still pretty entrenched in the top half of the Mid-American Conference, but this is as deep as the MAC has been on the women's side in a while. Central Michigan has won the conference outright the last 4 years. And then, obviously they got rid of divisions. It's no longer the MAC West and MAC East, but they had won the MAC West 5 years in a row. And really, they're kind of in a rut right now that we really haven't seen too much in this program in the last, 6-7 years since they've been as good as they have been. And dropped 2 in a row now. First, you go to Northern Illinois, and they just ran into a buzzsaw. Northern Illinois red hot from beyond the arc, but you kind of have to prepare for that going in when you're playing a team like that. It's a shooting team. They take a lot of three-pointers, a high-volume shooting team, and Central Michigan got them on a night when they were red hot. And, you give up 100 points on the road, and then, just yesterday they go down to Ohio. They lose to Ohio at home, and again, another rough start. They put it together in the fourth quarter defensively, but at the end of the night, you've got to play better in the first 3 so that you're not digging yourself out of a 17-point hole in the fourth. And, Heather Osterley after the game said that they're just not showing a ton of heart right now. And the first quarter of their last two games, they've taken some pretty good punches, and they just haven't responded well enough to win those games. And, I thought those are both valid criticisms. Obviously, she knows her team better than anybody else. And at the end of the day, this is a squad that's returning, I believe it's 8 players from a group that won their first 15 MAC games last year. And so, you kind of, maybe they aren't big-headed, but maybe that's not the word I'm looking for. But at the end of the day, there's that sense in the back of your mind where we're bringing everybody back. We were the best team last year. Why aren't we the best team this year? And, it can kind of start a sense of complacency a little bit. And I'm not saying this team's getting complacent, but it's just kind of human nature. And so for them to kind of be in a rut now, you're going to get to see a lot of their resolve in these next coming games. And that's why I think Wednesday's showdown with Eastern Michigan is going to be especially interesting, because now you're losers of 2 straight, and we're going to see just how much fire this group's got in the coming weeks.
Right, exactly, and honestly, complacency might be the right word. You win your conference outright for 4 straight years. The target is pretty big on your back. You know what I mean? And you kind of have to understand that. But again, like you said, it's human nature. You return all of your starters from a regular season championship squad last year. Why can't you go back and win the MAC easily? So I get it. I'm not saying that, that that's not understandable, but you're right. Something does have to kind of give here. Obviously losing 2 straight MAC games. I couldn't tell you the last time that really happened. And like you said, Heather Osterly is pretty upset. She said, after last week, that this isn't Central Michigan women's basketball, and kind of that president that she and former coach Sue Guevara put together. And she's absolutely right. So, like you said, it'll be interesting to see. And I'm gonna say it, so you're just gonna have to roll with me. But it's gonna be interesting to see how fired up that team is when they take the floor against Eastern Michigan on Wednesday night. And we're recording this on Sunday, so games were yesterday. There were games yesterday. Just kind of give you the timeline here. And speaking of yesterday, on Saturday, the men's team finally got a win, much needed win in conference play, move it to 2-3 in the MAC with a pretty, I don't want to say dominant win, but a pretty convincing win over Eastern Michigan, without Coach Keno Davis, who woke up feeling unwell Saturday morning and made the call to not coach. Chris Davis took his place for the interim, which made it confusing to edit that story. I got to be honest with you. Davis said which Davis, so we just went ahead and said Chris Davis. That was a fun little interesting thing there. But Christian, I mean, obviously, last year we saw a 9-game losing streak in MAC play after a pretty powerful win, a really big win over Bowling Green. And then you see a 3-game losing streak. That CMU's men's team has just been up and down so far this year, but they get the sweep over Eastern Michigan, and they kind of have the confidence of a winning basketball team again. What is going on with the men's team? I mean, you lose a Division II Flagler, which honestly could be a Group of 5 Division I. Let's be honest here; they've been playing out of their minds this year. And then you win a bunch of games, you start MAC play, you get a win, you go down and lose to Western, beat Eastern, lose 3 straight. It's just kind of a conundrum, if I do say so myself. Maybe conundrum isn't the right word there, but we're going to go with it. So what is going on with the men's team after all my babbling?
Well, I think they've got Eastern Michigan pretty figured out, and I think that's safe to say. I think that's a pretty good assertion on my part. 2-0 against them, and they haven't beaten anybody else in the conference. But I think they've played as tough a start to the conference slate as anybody. You knock out both of your games against Bowling Green in a week, and that's a Bowling Green team that's really clicking right now. Kent State, they're starting to kind of hit their stride. There's pieces there on that men's team. I really like what Malik Muhammad does. I think he's not a typical Keno Davis big man that can kind of stretch the floor, and I think that's a good thing. I think the presence he brings inside, he had a putback dunk yesterday that I saw. I mean, that's just not a play many Keno Davis big guys make. Obviously, Rob Montgomery was playing a little out of position last year and the year before. Obviously, a guy that's about 6'8", I think he was listed at, playing the 5-man against guys that are 6'11", 7 feet tall. So having a bigger guy like Muhammad down there is good for the offense. I think it's good for spacing. And, at the end of the day, they just got to get everybody to put it together. Devontae Lane has showed flashes offensively. His game against Valparaiso was, 27 points. Trevon Broadway took it up a notch. I think a lot of that has come with just an extended opportunity. He didn't have to be the guy last year, but now they need a scorer, and he's kind of emerging as that guy. You kind of go down the line. Mikhail Murray's another guy I really like. His athleticism speaks for itself. He can play pretty much 1 through 4, can handle it well. But the one newcomer I really like watching is Ralph Bassaith, and his ability to play, and not only play but guard pretty much 1 through 5 is just impressive to me. He's a guy that he's not going to start, but he's going to play a ton of minutes. He can give you, he can give anybody a break, between Devontae or Trevon or Malik Muhammad or Andre Polk when he gets back. He can basically sub in for anybody. He's got a lot of versatility. He can guard. He's shot the ball a lot better than I expected. Obviously, the numbers at JUCO were only about, I want to say, roughly between 28 and 30% from beyond the arc, and he's took that up a notch since coming here. So a really good addition, and I think that there are some pieces here between him and Muhammad and Caleb Huffman that are going to be good. In the next couple of years, I think with the extra year of eligibility, you're going to see largely the same group of guys next year as this year. This is just speculation at this point, but I haven't heard anything concrete as to who's coming back out of this senior class. But, at the end of the day, there's pieces there. It's just a matter of figuring it all out. And I think that they're not on the level of like a Bowling Green. And so, you're going to kind of take your licks against those better teams. But you get to going against teams that are kind of on your level, maybe a Ball State, a Northern Illinois, that MAC East is pretty loaded. But just some squads that is kind of on your level developmentally. I think Eastern Michigan's a perfect example of that. A lot of newcomers on that squad. And so Central, they go out there and kind of just, flex their wrath and show off what they can do. It's a good sign. I'm not saying they're going to win the MAC, and I think they'll be a fringe tournament contender for that 8th seed. But at the end of the day, being able to beat up on teams that are where you're at developmentally is huge. It's a huge first step. And also, before I kick it back to you, shout out to Chris Davis for stepping up and coaching as good of a game as he did yesterday.
Yeah, right there with you. I mean, obviously, stepping into that head coaching role is not easy day of the game, but he did it pretty well. Obviously, Chippewas get the big win. 4-game road stretch coming up for CMU's men's team. Akron on Tuesday night, 7 o'clock in Savage Arena. But really, I mean, one guy that you mentioned there, Caleb Huffman, he's been impressive to me. I've only been able to check out the men's team just a handful of times. Actually, no, that's false. I've checked them out once at home. And he had a huge game. I think he scored somewhere in the realm of 28 to 30 points. Is that game against Olivet that was just an absolute blowout. So it makes sense that he put up that many points, but yeah, no. In all honesty, I mean he's been one of those guys that's been impressive so far. And like you said, I mean they've got some pretty talented guys, and it's definitely a different look to that team than you've seen in years past with Keno Davis. So I'm really interested to see, like you said, kind of how they fare against that middle tier of the MAC. Some of those other teams, like Eastern Michigan or even Western Michigan when they'll come to McGurk Arena, or Ball State, or I think Buffalo, Bowling Green, and Toledo are going to be top contenders once again. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I could see the men's team getting to Cleveland. I could see them finishing in maybe the 10th seed. You know what I mean? So we'll just kind of have to wait and see how the season plays out. If they can kind of find a way to stop a team from letting a 6-0 run swell to 10. Kind of keeping that mental game going, and finding a way to what's the word I'm looking for? Just to kind of stay within themselves and not do things that they're not really known to do. Trying to do something just to score some points and make something happen. Then we'll see. I think if they can stick to who they are, I think they could be maybe even top. They could be somewhere in the top 6, maybe. But I think they could definitely be in the top 8, given that talent and that different look than you normally have with CMU. Kind of transition once again. We haven't talked since the end of the football season. So we'll hit on that real quick. Obviously, the season's been done now for just over a month. Chippewas went 3-3. Obviously, all MAC games, but just kind of like a lackluster season for year 2 under Jim McElwain. You finish up with a couple of losses to Ball State and Toledo, that's how it worked out. Ball State at home, that blowout, and then you lose by 1 against Toledo in a game that you should have had. If you're CMU. Christian, just kind of give me your overall thoughts just real quick on the 2020 season, and maybe a quick look ahead to the 2021 season.
If I can get my mic to unmute, geez. But I think, Jim McElwain called it unacceptable in the last game. And, I mean, I'll stop short of that simply because I think there were a lot of circumstances that kind of played against them. Obviously, you lose Laquan Johnson, season-ending knee injury on like the second snap of the second quarter of the first game. And, not having him, obviously, that means you're already extremely thin on that defensive line. You have to get a lot from guys like Amir Sadiq, and then Justin Whiteside's got to come up and play out of position. He's an outside linebacker, and you have to slide him to defensive end, and he played a lot of snaps there. The secondary took a little while to get used to playing with each other. Obviously, a lot of newcomers out there. But there are things to be excited about. You've got Deshaun McNary and Dante Kent are 2 guys that really stood out. Richard Bowens put it together at the end of the year as well. He looked good. Offensively, you want to talk about circumstances not playing to CMU's favor. David Moore not being able to take a snap. His story is, widely documented at this point, having tested positive a second time before the season began. It's a little unfortunate that we had to hear about that a month after the season ended, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I think that there were good things from Daniel Richardson and Ty Brock, and I think there were bad things from both of those guys. And at the end of the day, that's why they brought in a new quarterback in Jacob Sermon, who's going to compete for that starting job as well. And the good thing about having all that depth in your quarterback room is that it's going to bring out the best guy. Competition is what breeds, all this kind of good stuff. So it'll be interesting to see where the Chippewas go with quarterback. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to tell the story of this team. Still don't have a concrete answer on who's coming back and who's not. We should know that in the coming days. I assume that with this spring semester starting and spring football is right around the corner, we should be getting a new roster out here in the next, I would say, week or so, 2 weeks. And when we get that information, we'll relay it to you guys. But at the end of the day, there's just a lot of questions heading into next year. And it'll be really interesting to see the squad that takes the field in game 1 next year. Jim McElwain said they were going to find out who really wants to be here. And I wouldn't be, you've already seen some departures. Mohamed Diallo's in the transfer portal. DeMarcus Governor left. Oh, gosh. A couple of other people have entered the portal as well. And as a result, it's going to be a different squad taking the field this year as opposed to what it was, for the final snap at Toledo in the short season, the weird season, really, that was 2020.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a weird season. But, I mean, thankfully, we were still able to hit up a couple of different stadiums, cover some of those games. But yeah, I mean, the sense that I kind of got from Jim McElwain after that Toledo game was that he's going to be kicking some asses in spring football this year. And if I'm not mistaken, it's going to the spring like practice schedule more or less will start on the 19th of January. So start Tuesday of this week. They'll start with meetings and stuff like that. So I think the actual practice schedule itself will start sometime in February. So we'll kind of, that'll be kind of when we know what the roster is kind of going to look like for the most part. Obviously, things change day by day. I mean, just look at Google. But anyway, but yeah, you know, kind of disagree with you a little bit on the point of there's so many circumstances that's what football teams are supposed to be built for, really. And going 3-3, you know, I think it might be a good thing that McElwain thinks that's unacceptable. A lot of fans quote tweeted that tweet that I fired out after the game when McElwain said that, and they said, "Good, we finally have a coach that says something like that." So, you know, like I said, and then that's kind of where that we'll see who wants to be here kind of thing stems from, is basically code for I'm going to kick your ass this spring. If you want to come play football for me, you better be ready to get your ass kicked. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a lot of fun to see just how Chippewas will line up in the, well, knock on wood, in the fall of 21 here in hopefully September or late August, however it works out. So I'll put a wrap on football. We'll move over to I'm gonna say it's one of my favorite sports because I get to learn a lot about it as I'm covering it. But the CMU wrestling team has started off, I'm gonna say, in a decent way. The Chippewas beat up on Olivet in the season opener, and then dropped a pair of duels at Missouri, which is ranked number 10 in the country and 8-time defending MAC champion, and then lost a close duel against Wyoming, kind of in a triangular with three teams in one spot. And then Chippewas come back to McGurk Arena on Sunday. Again, we're recording this on Sunday, so I was actually just there earlier in the day, and secured a really close win over Northern Illinois. I don't think really it should have been. It's funny because, you know, Tom Borelli always talks about his bookend guys, Matt Stencil, Drew Hildebrandt. Actually, let's reverse that. Drew Hildebrandt and Matt Stencil. You know, 125 for Hildebrandt and 285 heavyweight for Stencil. You can always count on those guys to at least get you a win, if not score some bonus points. Hildebrandt did that against Northern Illinois with the tech over his opponent. But really, the middle weights of that lineup for CMU, I don't want to say concern me, but are a little bit concerning. Some of those guys, because they're still trying to figure out who really is going to start at all those weights. So it's going to be, like I said, you have your anchors on either side of the lineup, but finding some success toward the middle of the duel is going to be imperative for Tom Borelli and company. You know, obviously Borelli MAC co-coach of the year last year, and Stencil MAC wrestler of the year. He's ranked 6th in his weight class. I could honestly see him being an All-American once again. I could see him possibly, you know, in the hunt for, I'm going to say, a national championship. Honestly, the way that he goes about his business. I mean, he's one of the top guys, obviously, in the weight class. So it'll be interesting to see just how that middle, like I said, kind of the middle of the lineup works out. Landon Pelham is another guy. He's in the 197. He's really come into his own. He put in a lot of work over the summer, and it shows. I can't think of his record off the top of my head. I think he's 3-1 so far this year. And he picked up a huge win over a ranked opponent today or on Sunday against the Huskies. And actually that same guy, I can't remember the kid's name at NIU, but the kid at NIU beat Pelham in last year's MAC championship third place match in the 197 with a last second takedown. So Pelham said today that he was really he thought about that match a lot because that was the last match that he wrestled before this season got started, and that was one that fueled him pretty significantly in the summertime. So that's pretty good for him for sure. Another superstar possibly in the making. He's got a boat full of potential, really. Johnny Lovett, redshirt freshman in the 157. I was beyond impressed with his athleticism today. He scored a takedown right in the early part of his match, and it was loud. I mean, he threw his opponent down there on the mat, just sent reverberations throughout McGurk Arena. It was pretty impressive, not gonna lie. And he was able to find a way to score a takedown in the last with like 11 seconds to go in the match to pull out a major decision when ultimately helped the Chippewas pick up the much needed MAC win in McGurk on Sunday. So story coming out about him. Well, actually it might already be out at this point. I think our podcast is shipping on Tuesday. So, and this story's going out on Monday. So I think this story is already on cm-life.com. So make sure you go check it out. There's my plug. But yeah, I think 30th year for Tom Borelli is going to be a pretty successful one if the Chippewas can kind of, like I said, find someone to help fill out that middle of the lineup. But Johnny Lovett, like I said, redshirt freshman, brings a lot of energy, had a great mentor with Logan Parks last year, kind of helping him learn his way and how to be one of the more successful Chippewa wrestlers. So be interesting. It'll be interesting to say the least. That said, we're closing in. We're not quite done yet. We're closing in on the end though. Like I said, this is going to be a wild semester for CMU sports. Obviously, typically you have men's and women's basketball, wrestling, and gymnastics. So all four of those sports are coming back, but now we're going to add volleyball. Fellow staff reporter Catherine Schultz is going to be on volleyball this year. Make sure you go check her out. I'll make sure to plug everyone's socials here at the very end, but Catherine's going to be on volleyball. We'll make sure to have her on throughout the semester. But Christian, I know, we actually had a volleyball player, part of our staff last year. So, we had, conversations just about, life and not just CM life, but like actual life. But sounds like there's a lot of excitement around this team. Obviously a pretty good year under Mike Golick last year. I can't see there's any reason for less excitement this year.
Absolutely. For the, first however many games of the conference season until the last, 3, Central Michigan was the team to beat. And then the Ball State group got hot and ended up winning the MAC tournament. But, again, you win the MAC West. And the difference as, the first-time reporter, that was my first beat last year, and going to practice for the first time versus going to practice for the last time for media availability, it was like night and day. Talking to Mike the first day that we were allowed into practice, and he's telling us about, I believe his exact quote was, "Will we win the MAC? I don't know." And then you turn around however many weeks later, 15, 12 weeks later, and all of a sudden the conversation is, how does it feel to be a game away from clinching the MAC West title? So, I mean, the turnaround that he was able to have with that program, and I really wouldn't even, I'm going to stop short of calling it a turnaround because it was more the next step for him building his program, as opposed to when he got here to where it is now. I mean, he's doing a wonderful job leading that program, and it's not just on the volleyball court. It's everything he does for the team off the court. They call it the adulting 101. What he's able to do for helping them change tires and do all that sort of stuff. It's really impressive what he's been able to do. And then as far as they bring back a ton of contributors from last year. They lose Meg Kern, who was as solid as they come in the middle, but other than that, they've got just about everybody back, and a lot to be excited about. Shout out Grace. She's going to do her thing. And really just a lot to be excited about with that group.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, I mean, you could even say a turnaround, because I mean, that team, let's be honest with you, in the we'll call it the 2018 season. Yeah, the 2018 season was, I'll steal a phrase from you. I'm going to stop short of calling it abysmal, but it wasn't a very good team, if I'm not mistaken, in 17, 18. Then 2019 comes around, and they're one of the top teams in the MAC. So yeah, it was really impressive to see how Mike Golick was able to turn it around and have his team in contention to make a pretty decent run in the postseason. Yeah, and like Christian said, we got to shout out our friend Grace Butler. Like he said, she's going to go on and do a lot of great things this season. So we're keeping an eye on you. Don't worry. And we'll keep a good eye on the team as well. And I think if you don't have anything else about volleyball, I think we got one more team to talk about, and that is gymnastics. Second year under Coach Christine McDonald. I'm not sure what this team is going to look like. Losing obviously MAC Gymnast of the Year last year and Danelle Pedrick. It's going to be a big loss, because I mean, she was always their kind of all around. Here I am. I was about to say she was just kind of their all around. She could do everything for them. She literally was their best gymnast for the all-around competition. So gymnastics fans, I'm sorry, you're going to have to forgive me for that one. But yeah, Morgan Tong coming into her junior year, she's I think she's going to kind of take over that role that Pedrick had in her junior and senior year, kind of to lead CMU in the all-around competition. Couple of other seniors, Nora Fettinger is one of them. She's going to be one that I think is going to step up a little bit in some of her other events. But really, I could see this being another successful year for the CMU gymnasts. They were picked to win the MAC by the League's 7 coaches, which is always funny to me that there's only seven gymnastics programs in the Mid-American Conference. Rather than 12, or God, I think there's 15 or something ridiculous like that for the wrestling conference. So, anyway, like I said, I could see year 2 under Christine McDonald being successful. Last year, when the season was cut down by COVID, the Chippewas were in 3rd. Western Michigan was named the conference champion. So I don't want to say anxious, but I'm definitely intrigued to see how the Chippewas come out of the gate. They'll start on Sunday, a week from now, against Ball State on the road. They'll host 3 duels, and I don't remember all the opponents off the top of my head, but I know I think there's a triangular against Western Michigan and Ball State, I want to say, to end the regular season, at least at home. So I'll have to confirm on that one. So forgive me if that's incorrect, but obviously the whole schedule is out on the athletics website. So anyway, like I said, you could see this could be a pretty successful we'll call it winter season for CMU athletics. I mean, basketball teams can find a way to kind of get back to playing CMU basketball like the women's team knows how to, and the men's team has shown flashes of been able to do. The wrestling team can kind of keep doing its thing as the season kind of goes along, beat up on some of the teams, like Christian said about the men's basketball team, kind of in that same, we'll call it tier. So, I mean, Missouri's up here and then everyone else. But I think CMU is going to be at the top of that everyone else, honestly. So wrestling, volleyball, I think is going to – that team has so much fun. I think they're gonna be wildly successful. I think they could make a nice run at the postseason. And then gymnastics, I mean, they were picked to win the MAC, so there's something to be said there. And I think that that team's gonna have a lot of fun and a lot of success this winter. And then we get to jump into the spring season, which, well, obviously we'll talk all about when that season gets underway, in February, about a month from now. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be busy, but it's going to be so much fun.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it any better myself. Man, it's been a minute. Having just football in the fall was a little bit tough at times. Obviously, I love football, but volleyball and soccer and all that stuff, it serves as a change of pace sometimes. And so it'll be good to have all that back in the winter, and it'll keep us on our toes, if anything else.
That's exactly it. So, well, obviously we're on our toes and we're keeping our eyes and ears peeled for everything. So, hopefully you guys will stick with us, because I mean, there's going to be a lot of fun with this semester coming up with the CM Life Sports Department. So make sure you follow along with us at CM Life, at CM Life Sports on Twitter. You can find Christian at @CBoer_. You can find Mitch at Real Mitch Vberg, I think is his Twitter handle. Yep, at Real Mitch Vberg for Mitch. You can find Catherine at KSOC19 at KSOC19. That's Catherine's handle for volleyball. And you can follow me at Chastain AJ over on Twitter. Obviously, make sure you follow along on all of our other social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, all of our podcasts too. We have a lot of great podcasts coming up. Actually, Mitch, I think, is starting up one of his own podcasts, kind of bringing back, I think, on sportsmanlike conduct in a way. I think it might be a little bit different, but so it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy the ride. We will, I think we will too. And we'll make sure that we give everything we got so you guys can keep up on your Chippewa sports. Other than that, for our podcast editor and multimedia editor, I guess, Ben Ackley, Christian Boer, I'm Austin Chastain. We will talk to you again next week when we meet again.